Good morning/afternoon, everyone. Today, we're diving into something that impacts every conversation, every relationship, and every interaction we have: our ability to read people. Now, I know what you might be thinking: isn't that just something spies and Secret Service agents do? But the truth is, we all read people every single day. Whether it's a coworker in a meeting, a friend who says they're fine when they're clearly not, or even a child who insists they didn't eat the last cookie but their chocolate-covered face says otherwise. A former Secret Service agent once said, "The body whispers what the words don't say." And that, my friends, is where we start. Because reading people isn't about manipulation or mind games. It's about connection. It's about understanding. And when we learn to do that, we don't just become better at detecting deception, we become better leaders, better partners, better friends, and better human beings. Science tells us that 93% of communication is nonverbal. That includes body language, facial expressions, posture, even the tone of our voice. Think about that for a second. That means that what we say matters far less than how we say it. Secret Service agents are trained to notice the micro-expressions, those tiny, involuntary facial movements that last less than a second but reveal a person's true emotions. A forced smile might last, but a real one? It shows in the eyes. When someone's uncomfortable, they might shift their feet away from you. When they're confident, they take up more space. We can use this awareness in our own lives. The next time you're in a conversation, don't just listen to the words, watch the whole person. What is their face saying? Their hands? Their energy? But here's the thing: reading people isn't just about watching them. It's about feeling them. And that starts with emotional intelligence. When a Secret Service agent walks into a room, they don't just observe people. They tune into the emotions in the space. What's the mood? What's unspoken? Emotional intelligence means being able to regulate our own emotions so we can clearly see others. If we're too distracted, too anxious, or too focused on what we're saying, we miss everything happening in front of us. One of the greatest skills we can develop is perspective taking. When someone is acting distant or defensive, don't just label them as rude or cold. Ask yourself, what might they be feeling? What's happening beneath the surface? The more we lean into curiosity instead of judgment, the more accurately we can read the world around us. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. The best readers of people aren't the most skeptical or the most guarded. They're the ones who are willing to be vulnerable. Why? Because when we build trust, people let their guards down, and we can see them as they truly are. Secret Service agents don't just study criminals, they study human nature. And one of the biggest lessons they learn is this: people reveal themselves when they feel seen, heard, and safe. So if you want to become great at reading people, start by creating a space where they feel comfortable being real. This doesn't mean we become, it means we become compassionate observers instead of detached analyzers. Now, I know you're thinking, this is great, but how do I actually use it? So let's talk practical. Here are a few key techniques from the world of security and human behavior that we can use every day. The baseline method: before judging someone's behavior, first understand their normal. Are they usually talkative but suddenly quiet? Usually confident but suddenly hesitant? Change from baseline is where the truth lies. The 3-second rule: when someone answers a question, watch their reaction in the 3 seconds after they speak. If they look away, fidget, or tighten their lips, there's often more to the story. Mirroring and connection: people feel at ease with those who subtly match their energy. If you want to get someone to open up, gently mirror their body language and tone. It builds trust on a subconscious level. Listen to the how, not just the what. If someone says, "I'm fine," but their voice cracks or they avoid eye contact, that's the real answer. Conclusion: becoming a better reader of people. At the end of the day, reading people isn't about catching lies, it's about uncovering truths. It's about paying attention, practicing empathy, and leading with curiosity. The world is full of noise, distractions, and surface-level interactions. But the people who truly see others? Those are the people who build trust. Those are the people who make an impact. So I challenge you this week: don't just hear people. See them. Notice the micro-expressions. Watch the energy shifts. Tune into what's not being said. And most importantly, show up with the kind of presence that makes others feel safe enough to be seen. Because when we get better at reading people, we get better at understanding them. And when we understand people, we create a world with more trust, more connection, and more belonging. Nonverbal communication is one of the most powerful tools we have in understanding others, yet it is often overlooked in favor of the words people speak. However, studies have shown that over 90% of communication is nonverbal, meaning that tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, and even micro-expressions communicate more than words ever could. When we learn to read these cues, we begin to understand people at a deeper level, recognizing their true emotions, intentions, and state of mind. The way someone carries themselves, the way they use gestures, their posture, their eye contact, all of these elements provide insight into what they are feeling beneath the surface. Even silence itself is a form of communication. One of the key aspects of nonverbal communication is facial expressions. The human face is incredibly expressive, and it can convey a vast range of emotions without a single word being spoken. A smile can indicate warmth, openness, and friendliness, but it can also be forced, masking deeper emotions such as discomfort or sadness. Genuine smiles involve the muscles around the eyes, creating small crinkles known as crow's feet. A forced smile, on the other hand, tends to be limited to the mouth, without engaging the eyes. This small distinction is often the difference between detecting sincerity or recognizing that someone may be putting on a facade. Additionally, micro-expressions, those fleeting facial expressions that last less than a second, can reveal emotions that someone is trying to suppress. Fear, anger, sadness, or even contempt can flash across the face before someone regains control. Secret Service agents are trained to recognize these micro-expressions because they provide invaluable insight into a person's true feelings, regardless of what they are saying. Another important aspect of nonverbal communication is body language. People naturally express emotions through their posture, movements, and gestures, often without even realizing it. A person who is confident and comfortable in a situation will often take up space, standing or sitting with an open posture, shoulders relaxed, and head held high. Conversely, someone who is nervous or uncomfortable may shrink into themselves, crossing their arms, avoiding eye contact, or fidgeting. Crossed arms, for example, can indicate defensiveness or a desire to create a barrier between themselves and others. However, it is essential to consider context. Sometimes, crossed arms simply mean a person is cold or comfortable. The key to reading body language effectively is to observe patterns and changes rather than jumping to conclusions based on a single gesture. Eye contact is another significant factor in nonverbal communication. It is often said that the eyes are the window to the soul, and there is truth to that. People who maintain steady eye contact are often perceived as confident, honest, and engaged in the conversation. However, too much eye contact can be intimidating, while too little can signal discomfort, insecurity, or even deception. A person who avoids eye contact when answering a direct question may be withholding information or feeling uneasy about their response. On the other hand, some people naturally struggle with eye contact due to personality differences or cultural norms. That's why, when reading people, it's important to take into account their usual behavior. This is known as establishing a baseline. If someone normally maintains strong eye contact but suddenly starts looking away frequently, that shift may indicate discomfort or dishonesty. Hand gestures also play a role in nonverbal communication. People often use their hands to emphasize points, express enthusiasm, or clarify meaning. Someone who speaks with animated gestures is often passionate and engaged, while someone who keeps their hands hidden or fidgeting may be nervous or hesitant. In high-stakes situations, such as Secret Service interrogations or negotiations, professionals observe hand movements carefully. For example, a person who subconsciously touches their face, rubs their neck, or plays with their hair may be experiencing stress. Rubbing the back of the neck can be a self-soothing gesture, a sign that someone is uncomfortable with the situation. Similarly, a sudden shift from open hand gestures to clenched fists may indicate frustration or suppressed anger. These subtle cues can provide deeper insight into a person's emotional state, allowing us to respond accordingly. Tone of voice is another crucial element of nonverbal communication that is often overlooked. Two people can say the exact same words, but their tone, pitch, and pacing can completely change the meaning. Someone saying "I'm fine" in a neutral or upbeat tone likely means they are fine, but if they say it in a clipped, quiet, or trembling voice, it is clear that they are anything but fine. The same applies to pacing. Someone who is speaking unusually fast may be nervous or trying to rush through a conversation, while someone who is speaking more slowly than usual might be carefully choosing their words or feeling uncertain. Secret Service agents are trained to listen carefully to vocal cues, as inconsistencies between what someone says and how they say it can reveal hidden emotions. In everyday life, we can use this same skill to detect when someone is feeling anxious, frustrated, or even deceptive. Proxemics, or the use of personal space, also plays a role in nonverbal communication. People have different comfort levels regarding physical proximity, and the way they position themselves in relation to others can indicate their feelings. Someone who leans in close is often engaged and interested, while someone who subtly leans away or steps back may be uncomfortable. This concept is particularly important in security and law enforcement settings, where reading someone's reaction to physical closeness can reveal whether they are nervous, defensive, or even planning to flee. In everyday interactions, being mindful of how people react to proximity can help us gauge their comfort levels and respect their boundaries. Cultural differences also influence nonverbal communication, making it essential to consider context when interpreting gestures and body language. In some cultures, maintaining direct eye contact is a sign of confidence and respect, while in others, it may be considered rude or confrontational. Similarly, gestures that are friendly in one culture may carry negative connotations in another. Secret Service agents working in international settings must be highly attuned to these differences, ensuring they do not misinterpret behavior based on their own cultural assumptions. In our daily interactions, being aware of cultural variations in nonverbal communication can help us avoid misunderstandings and build stronger connections with people from diverse backgrounds. Nonverbal communication is a skill that can be developed with practice. The more we observe people's expressions, gestures, and body language, the better we become at understanding their emotions and intentions. However, the key to accurately reading people lies in looking for clusters of behavior rather than isolated actions. A single gesture or facial expression may not mean much on its own, but when combined with other nonverbal cues, it can paint a clearer picture of what someone is truly feeling. The most effective communicators are not just great speakers, they are great listeners and observers. They understand that words are only a fraction of the message and that the body often reveals what the mind tries to conceal. Ultimately, the ability to read nonverbal cues is not about manipulation, it is about connection. When we learn to pay attention to the silent language people speak, we become more empathetic, more perceptive, and more attuned to the world around us. Whether we are in a professional setting, a social gathering, or simply having a one-on-one conversation, recognizing and understanding nonverbal communication allows us to engage more meaningfully with others. It enables us to see beyond words and into the deeper truth of human interaction. Emotional intelligence and empathy are fundamental aspects of human connection and communication, shaping how we interact with others, interpret emotions, and respond to the world around us. While intelligence is often measured by cognitive ability, problem-solving skills, and logical reasoning, emotional intelligence is about something deeper. It is about understanding ourselves, regulating our emotions, and recognizing the emotions of others. In many ways, emotional intelligence is the key to meaningful relationships, effective leadership, and even personal success. It allows us to navigate conflicts with grace, build trust, and create a sense of belonging in our personal and professional lives. At its core, emotional intelligence is made up of several key components. The first is self-awareness, which is the ability to recognize and understand our own emotions. Self-awareness is not just about knowing when we are happy or sad, it is about understanding the deeper layers of our emotions, why we feel a certain way, what triggers certain reactions, and how our emotions influence our thoughts and behaviors. People with high emotional intelligence can identify their emotions in real time, allowing them to respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. For example, someone who is self-aware might notice that they are feeling irritable and realize that it is because they are stressed about an upcoming deadline. Rather than snapping at a coworker or taking their frustration out on others, they acknowledge their feelings and choose to handle the situation in a constructive way. Another crucial aspect of emotional intelligence is self-regulation, which involves managing emotions effectively. It is natural to feel anger, frustration, sadness, or anxiety at times, but what sets emotionally intelligent individuals apart is their ability to regulate these emotions rather than being controlled by them. Self-regulation does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist, rather, it means finding healthy ways to process and express them. This could involve taking a deep breath before responding in an argument, stepping away from a stressful situation to gain perspective, or finding a productive outlet such as exercise or journaling. When people lack self-regulation, they are more likely to lash out in anger, become overwhelmed by stress, or struggle to maintain healthy relationships. On the other hand, those who practice self-regulation can handle challenges with resilience, remaining calm and composed even in difficult situations. Empathy, one of the most essential elements of emotional intelligence, is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It goes beyond simply recognizing emotions, it involves putting ourselves in someone else's shoes and truly feeling what they feel. Empathy allows us to connect on a deeper level, showing compassion and understanding rather than judgment. When someone is going through a tough time, an empathetic person does not just offer words of comfort, they listen, they validate the other person's experience, and they provide support without minimizing or dismissing their emotions. This ability to tune into others' feelings is what makes relationships meaningful. It creates a sense of safety and trust, allowing people to be vulnerable without fear of being misunderstood or rejected. Empathy is often divided into two types: cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective intellectually. It is what allows us to recognize why someone might feel a certain way, even if we do not feel the same emotions ourselves. This is particularly useful in professional settings, where understanding different viewpoints is crucial for collaboration and leadership. Emotional empathy, on the other hand, is the ability to actually feel what another person is feeling. It is what makes us tear up when we see someone crying or feel joy when we witness someone else's happiness. Both forms of empathy are important, and when balanced, they allow us to connect with others in a meaningful way while maintaining healthy emotional boundaries. One of the challenges with empathy is that it requires vulnerability. To truly connect with others, we have to be willing to feel their emotions, which can sometimes be uncomfortable. This is why some people avoid empathy. They fear that if they allow themselves to feel another person's pain, they will become overwhelmed. However, avoiding empathy can lead to disconnection, making relationships feel shallow or transactional. True emotional intelligence involves embracing empathy while also practicing self-care, ensuring that we do not take on others' emotions to the point of burnout. In professional settings, emotional intelligence and empathy are invaluable skills. Leaders who possess emotional intelligence are able to inspire and motivate their teams, fostering an environment of trust and respect. They can recognize when an employee is struggling and offer support rather than criticism. They are also able to navigate conflicts with understanding, finding solutions that take everyone's emotions into account. A leader who lacks emotional intelligence, on the other hand, may be quick to anger, dismissive of their team's concerns, or unable to create a positive work environment. Studies have shown that emotional intelligence is a greater predictor of leadership success than technical skills or IQ alone, highlighting just how important it is in the workplace. Beyond professional success, emotional intelligence and empathy play a critical role in personal relationships. Whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or family dynamics, the ability to understand and validate emotions creates strong and lasting connections. Misunderstandings and conflicts often arise when people fail to recognize each other's feelings. For example, in a disagreement between partners, one person may feel unheard, while the other may feel attacked. If both individuals practice emotional intelligence, they can step back, recognize their own emotions, and try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. This leads to productive conversations rather than heated arguments. Developing emotional intelligence and empathy is a lifelong journey, but there are practical steps that can help strengthen these skills. One of the most effective ways to build emotional intelligence is through active listening. This means truly paying attention when someone speaks, rather than just waiting for our turn to respond. It involves listening not only to the words but also to the emotions behind them. Another strategy is mindfulness, which helps increase self-awareness by allowing us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. Practicing gratitude and kindness can also enhance empathy, as it shifts our focus from ourselves to others. It is to recognize that emotional intelligence is not something people are simply born with. It can be cultivated through intentional practice. By making an effort to tune into our emotions, regulate our reactions, and understand others more deeply, we can become better communicators, more compassionate leaders, and more supportive friends and family members. Ultimately, emotional intelligence and empathy are what allow us to form genuine human connections. They bridge the gap between people, creating a world where we feel seen, heard, and understood. In a time when society often values speed and efficiency over emotional depth, taking the time to truly connect with others is more important than ever. Whether in our personal lives, workplaces, or communities, the ability to understand emotions, both our own and those of others, is what leads to stronger relationships, greater resilience, and a deeper sense of purpose. By prioritizing emotional intelligence and empathy, we not only improve our own lives but also contribute to a more compassionate and connected world. When it comes to understanding people, one of the most valuable skills we can develop is the ability to listen not just to what someone is saying but to how they are saying it. The words people use can tell us a lot, but their tone of voice, pacing, inflection, and even pauses between words often reveal much more about their true emotions, intentions, and state of mind. This is why skilled communicators, therapists, negotiators, and even Secret Service agents focus as much on the how as they do on the what. When we become attuned to these subtle vocal cues, we gain a deeper understanding of the person speaking, allowing us to pick up on things that might otherwise go unnoticed. Tone of voice is one of the most powerful indicators of a person's emotional state. Two people can say the exact same sentence, but the way they say it can completely change the meaning. For example, if someone says, "I'm fine," in a neutral, even tone, they likely mean it. But if they say the same words with a clipped, tense voice, or with a slight tremble, it is a sign that they are anything but fine. A sarcastic tone can turn a simple statement into something completely different, conveying frustration or annoyance even if the words themselves sound polite. A warm and gentle tone, on the other hand, can make a simple phrase feel comforting and reassuring. This is why it is important to listen beyond the words themselves and pay attention to how they are delivered. Pacing and speech patterns also offer valuable clues about a person's emotions and state of mind. When someone is speaking unusually fast, it may indicate nervousness, anxiety, or excitement. Their mind may be racing, and they may feel the need to get their words out quickly, either because they are afraid of being interrupted or because they are trying to mask their discomfort. On the other hand, slow, deliberate speech can indicate careful thought, sadness, or even an attempt to manipulate the listener by creating a sense of control. A sudden change in pacing within a conversation can also be telling. If someone starts out speaking confidently and then suddenly slows down, hesitates, or begins to stumble over their words, it might mean they are unsure about what they are saying or that they are trying to conceal something. Recognizing these shifts allows us to ask better questions and respond with greater awareness. The use of pauses is another key element in how people communicate. While silence can sometimes feel uncomfortable, it can also be incredibly revealing. A well-placed pause before answering a question might indicate that the person is carefully considering their response, or it could mean they are searching for the right words to avoid revealing something they would rather keep hidden. A lack of pauses, where someone rushes through their words without taking a breath, might suggest nervousness or a desire to steer the conversation quickly in a certain direction. People who are lying or withholding information often struggle with pauses. They may either pause too much as they try to craft a convincing response or avoid pausing altogether in an attempt to sound more natural. Skilled listeners pay attention to these patterns and use them to gain insight into what is really going on beneath the surface. Another critical factor in how people speak is the volume and pitch of their voice. A sudden increase in volume can indicate defensiveness, anger, or an attempt to assert dominance in a conversation. Conversely, a sudden drop in volume might signal insecurity, embarrassment, or a desire to avoid confrontation. People who are excited or passionate about a topic often unconsciously raise their pitch, while those who are feeling threatened or upset might lower their pitch in an attempt to sound more controlled. When someone's pitch wavers or becomes shaky, it can be a sign that they are feeling overwhelmed, emotional, or on the verge of tears. Recognizing these vocal cues allows us to respond appropriately, whether that means offering reassurance, giving someone space, or adjusting our own communication style to create a more productive dialogue. Beyond individual elements like tone, pacing, pauses, and volume, it is also important to listen for inconsistencies between what someone is saying and how they are saying it. If a person is claiming to be confident about a decision but their voice is hesitant, their speech is filled with uncertainty, and their pacing is uneven, then their words may not be telling the full story. These discrepancies can be especially important in high-stakes situations, such as negotiations, interviews, or even personal conversations where trust and honesty are key. By being attuned to these inconsistencies, we can ask more thoughtful questions and create space for deeper, more honest discussions. Listening to the how in communication is also essential when trying to detect deception. People who are not being entirely truthful often struggle to maintain consistency in their vocal patterns. They may start out speaking in a certain way but become less confident as the conversation progresses. They might use an overly controlled tone in an effort to sound convincing, or their voice might crack under the pressure of maintaining a lie. Changes in breathing patterns can also be a giveaway. Someone who suddenly starts taking shallow breaths or sighing more frequently may be experiencing stress or discomfort. These subtle cues can help us determine whether what we are hearing is aligned with what we are seeing and whether we need to dig deeper to uncover the truth. Beyond deception detection, focusing on the how in communication allows us to build stronger relationships and develop deeper empathy for others. When we listen beyond words and pay attention to the emotions behind them, we become more attuned to what people are really experiencing. This skill is invaluable in both personal and professional settings, as it allows us to respond in ways that make others feel heard, validated, and understood. A friend who says they are okay but whose voice is unsteady might need support even if they do not explicitly ask for it. A colleague who speaks in a hesitant, uncertain tone when presenting an idea might need encouragement rather than criticism. A loved one who suddenly becomes quiet in the middle of a conversation might be struggling with something deeper than they are willing to say out loud. Recognizing these cues allows us to offer support in ways that are meaningful and impactful. Developing this level of attentiveness takes practice, but it starts with being fully present in conversations. Too often, we listen with the intent to respond rather than with the intent to understand. When we focus only on the words being spoken, we miss out on the wealth of information that is being communicated through tone, pitch, pacing, and other vocal elements. By training ourselves to listen more carefully, we become better at reading between the lines, understanding the emotions that drive conversations, and responding with greater awareness and compassion. Ultimately, listening to the how rather than just the what transforms the way we communicate and connect with others. It deepens our relationships, enhances our ability to navigate complex conversations, and allows us to uncover truths that words alone might not reveal. Whether in personal interactions, professional settings, or high-stakes negotiations, this skill empowers us to be more perceptive, empathetic, and effective communicators. By paying attention to the nuances of how people speak, we open ourselves up to a richer and more authentic understanding of those around us. It sounds like you're wrapping up a video or social media post. If you want a polished outro, you could say something like, "Thanks for watching, friends. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next one. Let me know if you want a different style." Smiling face with smiling eyes.